Hello and welcome to the Two Bald Brothers and a Microphone podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan. I'm here with co-host Tommy Ryan. How are you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful. And you were away last week at Ignite down in Orlando.
I was.
And been missed talking to you last week and looking forward to finding out all the stuff that you learned while you were down there, and just somewhat held off on asking you a bunch of questions, waiting for this time to get your thoughts on things. I saw that I did read through this morning your notes from the conference, from some of the different sessions that you were able to go to, and I know you met with a bunch of people while down there. How did the week go in general?
I thought it went well. Mm-hmm. It was as usual, it's jam-packed, more things than you have time to see, kind of the Disney experience of conferences. They do a good job at giving you different ways to consume the information. They have a hangout area, which I used a little bit more than I did last time. It's a way to be able to go across a couple of the presentations. So if you're a little ADD, it's a perfect place to be. So you sit there and you can see a bunch of different sessions up on the screen. Yeah, big, long, tall wall that has, I can't remember how many, maybe 14 different presentations going on at the same time. So they end up taking presentations that are overbooked, and they get top priority to be shown on that wall. So if you can't get into a room, you can view it there.
And do they have something where you can dial into whichever one you want to listen to, or how does that work?
They have a transmitter or a receiver that's receiving the signals, and you can change the channel and plug up your earphones to it. And they were giving out the Microsoft earphones. Every time you would go there, you could get another pair if you wanted to.
Nice.
So I got a few for the office.
Very good.
And that was handy, because if you were in a presentation and it just wasn't going the way you thought it would go, you can jump over to another topic, and you're not walking down or across the conference floor to get there.
Nice.
So that was nice. And it's good to go in person. I think the screen is, quote, larger. It's, with having so many screens up on the wall, it was a little bit harder to see the content. So being in the room itself was good, and also just getting the exercise too.
Yeah,
was nice.
You went down there with Pete and with Kirk, and Linda was able to join you as well.
Yeah. Linda she wasn't at the conference as much as just at the hotel. We're just working from the hotel. Okay. Came down, we visited some relatives. Did you see some family? Yeah, saw some family.
Good.
And and Pete and Kirk were.
Did you divide and conquer? Or,
for the most part, there were maybe 2 or 3 sessions where we were all in the same session.
Okay.
But there's quite a bit of divide and conquer, so we could get a sense.
Primarily like the SharePoint intranet ones and development ones, or which ones were the ones that you guys really wanted to make sure you didn't miss?
Yeah, there was the app dev related ones, like PNP, coverage of what's going on within the PNP frameworks, and SharePoint development framework. And there were more the intranet based of, what are best practices within using the out-of-the-box features of the intranet with, from a branding and a information architecture standpoint, and what are the, new web parts and stuff like that. Then there's Flow and Power Apps. We viewed a few of those. And I selfishly went to one that was what is new on the Mac for Office.
There you go.
To kind of see, what's coming there. Which one I'm looking forward to. I tried to get it set up, and it's set up properly, which is Files on Demand.
Okay.
And that way you can see a thumbnail of kind of all your content that's on OneDrive, and selectively determine which pieces of content are
you using like insider builds for getting that?
You have to. It requires an insider build, and then you've got to go delete some local cache. And I could not find that in the file structure. It wasn't there, so I installed it, and it didn't work. I don't think I got the right version.
It's funny when you said delete local cache. It sounded like a technical way of spending money on something. Yes, I
Yeah.
had to delete some local cache. Did you, so were the thing, so the files on demand was something that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah.
I think you've got selective sync, so you've got that, but files on demand allows you to see everything that's in your OneDrive, and it's not loading the entire set of content, and you can selectively indicate what folders or files will be always on your machine, versus you can see it, and if you click on it and it's not on your machine, it'll go and retrieve it for you. But if you're offline, you're on the plane or something like that where you don't have internet access, you can see that thumbnail, but you can't get to the content unless it's been forced down as a local file.
I listened to Windows Weekly last week where they were covering sort of the big news from the event, and there was a lot of stuff that was announced, but you guys came back with the same thing, which I thought was interesting, what I would never have guessed would be what you guys would be talking about, which was the Bing stuff. Were you able to search inside your Office 365 tenant?
I like the direction that's going. It takes advantage of what the strengths of Microsoft are. And although public-facing internet search is not, say, their strongest point or what they're known best for, and compared to, say, Google search, but all the sources of collaboration content they have across the platform, there isn't a central way to search that. So this is the beginning of that. And it not only searches across Yammer and Teams and SharePoint, which you can't do today, it also includes public content. So it can be your one-stop shop of, I need to find some information, and that might be internal, that might be external.
Yeah, and it was unlike Microsoft's normal style of things. It wasn't something that's coming next year. It was, we got the email from that our tenant had it enabled, and so of course I scurried out there and got it set up and looked at what it was, and it's pretty easy to go out there and configure it. And so it's neat.
Yeah, it's a decent one though. It's it doesn't. You would love to have things like facets on that, so you can drill down to it further. It gives you a card for each of the content sources and kind of a list there. So, it's not as rich as a interleaved set of results that give you a full page view. That
it's more like a federated search, where
it feels more like a federated search than a fully integrated search. So hopefully, they've got control over Bing and control over their tenants in the cloud, which makes it promising that they can do that, versus trying to mix and match content sources that are some owned by the client and, with their own infrastructure and some in the public web. This is all out there in the cloud that they have control over those properties. So they should be able to make that tightly integrated.
This reminded me, it looked like they took a page out of Evernote's book where they have that mixed with the Google search, where you can also see the content that's in your Evernote notebooks. You look like you're about to laugh. What?
No.
It looked like.
No, I was trying to recall what that feature
Evernote,
looks like.
So you can set Evernote up so that part of the search results, it's like a federated search. So
or look at
Google
LinkedIn
search,
and stuff like that.
No, what it'll do is, this is for Google search. You can
where
set up.
It shows up as a federated piece.
It'll show off to the side,
right,
where Evernote will show. It reminded me of that, like right away, which was sort of like a mixed search, trying to find something.
I agree.
I want to look both
it is
externally
like that.
And also inside of my own good stuff. I think that's ultimately love to have it all all integrated together, and using things like facets and that sort of stuff, and timeline based things, and but it's definitely a good move in the right direction. You can create bookmarks and things like that in it, so they're
I like that. The suggested bookmarks is a simple feature, but it's a way for your community to suggest, how can we improve the search experience? I'm trying to find this did not show up in the results I expected it to, so let me suggest a bookmark.
Yep.
which that's it's a great way to. It's kind of the best bets
Yeah.
of what you have in SharePoint.
Yep. What other sessions come to mind when you think about the week, or anything, any takeaways that you would share with me, that, or others about stuff that you picked up from the week that were little jewels that you would like to share?
I attended a session that they were kind of building out the intranet live, and they were, as there was kind of a team of folks that were building out different components and kind of started from scratch and built out, I think, a fairly compelling intranet, on the fly. And as they were talking about what are the capabilities of the platform, and so it was nice. I think it's starting to round out where the features that you see in modern are becoming prime time, versus modern is, okay, this is a look of what you're going to have in the future, and you can kick the tires a little bit, but we don't have feature parity with the classic. And classic to modern, there's not that full parity, but I think there's that 80-20 now that they've got the majority of the elements that you need to go down the modern path, which that I think is going to help us in terms of being able to help people create a best-of-breed intranet where we're not kind of teetering between, well, should we keep some of this in classic, or how much should we go forward with modern? And hub sites is, I think, a critical component to bridge that gap of a hierarchical to a flat world that you have with Office 365. I think we're going to start seeing more people getting into the design of what their intranet is. I think people early on in SharePoint and Office 365 have kind of thought of it more of, team sites for now. And I'm kind of going to leave my SharePoint as is for now, because I just don't know how to move it over. So I think we're helping more organizations get out to the cloud where they can have a full-fledged intranet solution, versus I don't know exactly what to do right now. I feel a little bit in limbo in the cloud in terms of what direction should I go.
I think for us, as we look at doing platform replacements with Jive, that we've been doing a lot of, is trying to get the similar type of experience in the new environment. I think this will help us. Should help us with, who was it? I was talking to Pete about how far along Modern Pages has come, and it was Kirk the other day. Kirk and I were talking about this, and it's a critical piece that I think for us that needs to be put in place, and I think we are at a tipping point. And seeing, and even we're getting some customers coming to us where they might have used somebody else for the migration, and then they don't like the experience, and they're looking to us to make a better experience, whether it be more responsive or more, using probably some of the modern features of SharePoint and Modern Pages. So
and I think that's where we want to be, and we've been a little bit, I don't know if frustrated is the right word, but anxious to get to that point where we're able to do more in SharePoint that is solution oriented versus just migration focused, and where you feel like you are giving them a better experience, or at least a experience that's as good as. And there's some things out there that are going to round out the UI and give you some of those things that you see today, like parallax and things that you already see today in terms of their layouts, or have better design principles implemented, so puts people in the right direction.
It was interesting to see, and reading through your notes, I think it was you that put this note, was about Yammer, and trying to, maybe we should look at just to know what's going on with it. My main complaint about sort of what has changed since we've gone to the complete let's use Teams for internal collaboration is, there's probably the two areas I constantly complain about, it feels like, is I don't have my just a status update, because I don't, like right now I'm doing status updates on in the cafe on the general tab. I know I'm probably putting a lot more out there than anybody else is, but that's my status update. That's my way of letting the world know, oh, this is something interesting, and it doesn't fall underneath like lighter side. It doesn't fall underneath any of the other threads. Whereas in Yammer, I would just do that, and if somebody was following me, they would see those things. They'd sort of run into that, and it wasn't that they had to see it, but
you have a central feed. You don't have that central feed.
Yeah, you don't have a central feed just to let people know what's going on, and if they want to follow you, they can. If they don't, then it's a little bit more of I feel like I'm pushing it to the world, which I don't think people really, I don't like feeling that way. Like you have to read this to get where you're constantly seeing what my updates are there. That's one thing, and the other thing is the tagging is having some way of putting something out there that people can find things based on tags. And right now I've got to think about it and put it in the right channel, and I don't have a way of, tagging comes to more of, a way of putting multiple tags inside of something, because it may have to do with multiple things, and then a way to find it later on. Right now, what I feel like we're doing, right now I'm using pretty much free text search to go find something. I want to see what you guys talked about for Ignite. Like just this morning, I'm using more of, just search for Ignite and see what comes up out there. I'm not going to a tag or anything like that. Whereas, it just allows for you to do, I think, to organize things in a more, in a way that you can find it easier later on. But, I was interested. You just sort of like, we're just, is Yammer changing it? I mean, did you hear anything where?
I didn't go to a lot of Yammer sessions, and from what I see with Yammer, one, their announcement with the Yammers, now there's a modern experience web part for Yammer. So if you're going down the modern path, you really didn't have a good way to integrate Yammer. Now you do.
Okay, good.
So that's a positive thing. I think as you look at, I think there's still plain text. I think, some of the limitations that it has is still there. I think they're still talking about a better integration with content with Yammer. That it doesn't have the experience they had with Teams, where you bring up the file and then you've got on the right-hand pane a list of comments that are associated with it that are social comments that you have with Teams. They said they're working on that. They had that and they pulled it, and it sounded like it was a patent issue in terms of how they approached it. So maybe there was a technology implementation that was patented, I guess. I might have misheard that, but they want, the intent is to get that back in, to have the ability to have comments tied to the content. So if you do have some Yammer conversations around a piece of content in your tenant, that will become available if you went to that information directly. And that'd be interesting to see, how does that work if you had Yammer comments on something that is in a team that has team comments, and it's yet another way to comment. It was interesting. They did have comments that are inside of your Office documents that if you mention them, then it sends an email to them.
Okay, cool.
So, which I think is interesting, because I think one of the reasons are use a team comment or team conversation around a document versus a comment that's inside of the document is, how do you draw attention to that person? You have to create another step of creating a comment in Teams to say, go look at my comments, or send them an email, say, I made some updates, be sure to look at the comments. This gives you in one flow of, @mention Danny, I put in the comments, it's contextual, not just to the document, to an element that's in that document. And it's within the document, it's self-contained. So wherever you move that, you don't break the linkage. Like if you move a document within Teams, you're going to break the linkage to those comments. So it's interesting. It gives yet another way to think about, how can I collaborate? And so when Yammer has comments tied to the document, I'd be interested to see how that surfaces, how that comes together.
I'm still, a couple of other things, and then we'll wrap up here. For Yammer, I think its purpose is more for larger organizations across departments. So that type of collaboration. And then I'm also I'm using it for some of the Microsoft partner stuff. So I've got some Yammer communities so it's even across companies types of things. And I know we typically have client extranets, and we're dabbling with using Teams for that as well. It'll be interesting to see how this progresses with, how are people, what's the common scenario for how people are using what technologies are involved in extranets. So with collaboration outside the organization, it's really interesting to see what direction that goes. Is it going to be primarily a Teams direction, which I think we're dabbling with right now and taking a look at that, or is it going to be more of Yammer seems to you join a community and that can have people from whatever company inside that community, and is that going would that be the appropriate place to
I would say Yammer would be for external communities, so cross organization, more than one-to-one type of community. And then if there's a one-on-one, you got a project with your client and you need to have extranet, I think Teams is more appropriate.
Interesting.
And I've seen it work well. We just came off a retrospective with a large chip manufacturer, and they thought Teams was a perfect way to collaborate and have everything in one place. And we've done it in two ways. One, where you've done it in their tenant and become a guest to their tenant, or we've done it the other way if for some reason they don't have guest access enabled for their tenant. But we like to do it in theirs because that allows us to, collaborate, have all the and they've got the document and all the metadata and everything about it. We don't have to worry about migrating it to them or packaging it for them. It's there. And from a data security. And GDPR and all that kind of stuff.
They're controlling the content.
They're controlling it's within their tenant. We don't have liability there. So that's our preference is, put it in their tenant.
Last one, and then we've got to go run to our stand-up. I saw you went to a to-do session, and this has to do, like right now, what I find is a missing piece of a lot of this stuff is like, we were just talking sort of earlier about like a workflow where you and I are working on something. A lot of day-to-day, a part of my productivity is creating to-do items for me out of things, out of context that's mentioned, somebody mentions me to this and so I have something that comes out of that I don't want to forget and put into my trusted system of, I know it's there. I know I'm going to react to it at the right time. And as you know, I'm using Todoist, and it's got like a lot of the stuff I've also been doing a lot of browser based. So even with you saw the new Outlook experience, which I think is great. A lot of stuff I'm doing, I'm basically grabbing the context. So I'm in Microsoft Teams, somebody mentions me, I'll actually, highlight that thing and then send it to Todoist as a to-do item, and then mark it up and say, I've got to follow up on this tomorrow. And that link itself is back to Teams. So it pulls me back to the context that I need to go do what I need to do. And that workflow has been good for me. I think Microsoft, I'm like, Microsoft, you've got such a great opportunity for people to, they're trying to get work done. And the way that a lot of people, I think that, I think the calendaring stuff is rock solid. I think there's just a missing piece there with, somebody mentions me, why can't I just create a to-do item out of that and add it to my to-do list? It seems like that's productivity. That is what people really want. And just, I know you went to a session and they're coming along. They are coming along, but it still seems like, I don't think they're throwing loads of developers at it or anything where, we're going to see something significant change anytime soon. It frustrates me. I've dealt with it. I've moved on. I'm using what works for me, but really, would be great to see them invest in this and make it happen where you can create in context to do items for things that you're trying to get done.
Right. Yeah, I think the vision is it's the one place you go for all your tasks across the platform.
Yeah.
And they're moving in that direction, but very, very slow. And I feel like the things that I saw was almost a repeat of what I saw last year. And there's some progression. There is some. We're going to start seeing the task area of Outlook become to do. Mm-hmm. There's ability to drag and drop items into your task list from Outlook contexts, and kind of link backs to get to, okay, where did this task come from? But it's something that you feel like could have been done a while ago, and not sure why. I think they're putting more energy into Planner than they are to do, because I think Planner is that organizational task management, and to do is the personal side, and they're just that it's hard. I'm not sure why. It just seems like it's a great place to lock people in. It gets to their mission.
I mean, this is empower every person. I mean, how do you get part of empowering somebody has to do with giving them control over what they're doing. And how do people do that? I mean, they do that by planning out what their day looks like.
Right.
Maintaining control over what's next for them to do. What are they prioritizing? And I'm not. And I know that Satya, he loved Wunderlist. It was his favorite app at one point in time. He was talking how that was his favorite app. So I know he's got his eye on it. So I'm not. It just seems strange.
Yeah.
And from a
some things that we don't know about
thing,
that
and,
are going
and
on.
you go look at the forums, and they know what's going on. I mean, they know. Like people basically want They want all the features of Wunderlist, and so it's frustrating. But along with that, there's so many other great things they're doing. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And so you just for us, you look for a workflow that works for you, and then you just keep an eye on things and see how things progress, and that's the way you handle these types of situations. So, well, it's great to have you back, and look forward to. I know we're going to do some lunch and learns and stuff like that from the sessions, and look forward to learning more about what went on out there, and appreciate you sitting down and sharing with the listeners more of what's been going on. So thanks for doing this.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.